Heartbroken Millionaire follows his pregnant employee. Uncovers a hidden secret that changed everything. Blake Mitchell, a man with a net worth in the millions, had lost everything that truly mattered. His eyes flickered over the skyline of San Francisco from his corner office, where innovation thrived around him, but warmth eluded him. The sterile light only served to amplify the void within him, the echo of laughter that once filled their home, now a distant memory. As his gaze settled on the bustling city below, he thought of Ava, the pregnant assistant who seemed to float in and out of the corporate machine, unnoticed by most, but standing as a beacon of resilience in his mundane routine. Every laugh she shared was a reminder of a family he'd once cherished. But beneath his admiration, Blake felt the weight of a chasm between his affluent world and hers, a chasm he could no longer ignore. This autumn afternoon, the unsettling absence of her laughter was palpable. Blake's heart raced as the clock ticked relentlessly toward noon. Ava hadn't shown up for work, and with each passing minute, an unsettling unease churned within him. He hesitated, perched on the edge of his chair, staring across the office at the empty desk that usually pulsed with her vibrant energy. "It's just one day," he whispered to himself, yet doubt gnawed at him as he fought to suppress the growing concern. His colleagues hustled past, lost in their pursuits, oblivious to the wistful absence that had pierced Blake's thoughts. That's when he spotted a note. A small slip of paper nestled between stacks of paperwork on her desk. He picked it up, reading her hurried scrawl that hinted at family troubles. The rumors he had overheard in the break room suddenly filled his mind with shame. Anxiety coiled tightly around him. Who was he to ignore the struggles of those beneath his powerful facade? A paradox emerged. He, once a champion of teamwork, felt the pang of isolation creeping back in. "Where is she?" he asked himself, questioning the silence he had allowed to cloud his judgment. It was time to act. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With determination, Blake left his powerful office behind, stepping into the world of whispered secrets and stark realities. The working-class neighborhood he found himself in contrasted sharply with the polished streets of his life, but suddenly felt more real. He breathed in the rich aroma of comfort food, something he had long forgotten. Each step toward her home stripped away the weight of his privilege, forcing him to confront his history and the growing guilt associated with it. The facade began to crumble as the familiar semblance of control faded into the background. Knocking on her door, Blake was met with the harsh truth of faded paint and a small garden that spoke stories of struggle and resilience. It was in that moment a tiny light flickered in his chest, illuminating the shadows of regret. Here was a connection he had never anticipated, a link to a past marred by his family's choices. Hearing footsteps approach, he steeled himself for a revelation that might upend everything he believed. There were questions at the edge of his consciousness, a storm brewing that threatened to unravel everything he had sought to hide. But just as he shared the enormity of what he had discovered, the door suddenly swung open, and time seemed to freeze. The face on the other side revealed painful truths yet to come, intensifying the whirlwind of emotions colliding within him. Would he emerge from this confrontation unscathed? Or would the contradictions of love, ambition, and legacy shatter the remnants of his carefully constructed reality? In that precarious moment, a phone call jolted him back, uncertainty swirling around him, as the world outside continued to spin relentlessly forward. The door creaked open, revealing Ava, her face a mix of surprise and concern that mirrored the turbulence in Blake's chest. Her eyes widened as they locked onto his, and for a moment, the noise of their surroundings faded, replaced by a cacophony of unspoken words. He felt vulnerable, yet electrified, standing in a space that had become a world apart from the one defined by board meetings and numbers. "Ava," he began, his voice tinged with urgency. I was worried about you." The admission felt foreign, yet liberating, as if shedding a layer of his corporate armor. She stepped back, inviting him in, and Blake hesitated at the threshold, the scent of freshly baked bread enveloping him. It contrasted sharply with the sterile aroma of his office, rekindling long-buried memories of warmth he had resigned himself to forget. "What are you doing here, Blake?" she asked, her brow furrowing. "I found your note. I just wanted to make sure you're okay," he replied, the sincerity of his words weighing heavily in the air. Her distress ignited something within him, a fierce need to protect, yet he struggled to articulate that feeling through layers of guilt and a history of emotional neglect. "I'm fine," she insisted, though the tremor in her voice suggested otherwise. The tension melted the distance he had felt before. Here was a chance for reclamation of both her story and his. "Are you?" he questioned softly, closing the distance to her, searching her eyes for the truth. "It's okay to not be fine, Ava. Your struggles matter." The abrupt honesty astonished him, seizing control of his otherwise guarded nature. A flicker of vulnerability crossed her face, and she sighed, taking a seat at the small kitchen table. "It's complicated. I thought I could manage it by myself." The weight of her admission resonated, echoing his own turmoil, his unwillingness to face the void in his life head-on. "I've been there," he admitted, unconsciously leaning closer. It served as an invitation, a retreat from the self-centered world he had inhabited. "I know what it feels like to want to shoulder everything alone, but you don't have to do it alone." A hint of desperation seeped into his words, revealing just how far removed he had been from authentic connections. Ava's expression softened, but there was still hesitation. "This isn't just about me. I have responsibilities. I'm just trying to stay afloat." His heart twisted at the thought. In that moment, he recognized her strength, an echo of resilience he had long forgotten he possessed. "And I can help if you let me. I know people in the community who can provide resources or—" "No," she cut in sharply, though her voice softened in the next breath. "I don't want charity. It's not like that." Frustration mixed with clarity in her gaze, with unyielding determination underlying her words. "Then let me help. Let's figure it out together," he urged, frustration rising to the surface. The challenge ignited urgency within him. "You don't have to walk this path alone." Her silence thickened the air, and for a fleeting moment, he sensed an undeniable strength poised to break free, the same spark that illuminated her around the office. The shift had begun, but their roles were still not defined. "What do you want from me, Blake?" she asked, her voice steadier now. It was a question he had skated around for months. His admiration shifted from superficial to something deeper as he eyed the glimmer of potential unfolding before him. What did he want? The answer resided in the uncomfortable churning within. "I want to understand you." The air held its breath as he acknowledged the growing tension. They stood at a precipice of connection, armed with secrets and uncertainties that could either shatter their fragile foundations or fortify them. The revelations they were on the brink of exchanging would become the catalyst, each truth slowly unfurling like the autumn leaves outside the window. Just as he opened his mouth to speak again, vibrating with unvoiced potential, a blaring phone interrupted the moment, demanding attention from both worlds they occupied. Would this become a crossroads that transformed their futures, or would the noise threaten to drown out their chance at something real? The answer loomed just out of reach, compelling Blake to confront the chaos within as the call forced them to face realities they could no longer ignore. The ringing phone pierced the fragile atmosphere, like a jarring alarm shattering the stillness. Ava's eyes darted to the device on the countertop, and for a heartbeat, it felt like the weight of the world had settled firmly on both their shoulders. She hesitated, then reached for the phone, her energy retreating as she swiped to answer. "Hello?" she spoke, her voice steadying as though she were donning a mask. Blake watched her, this woman who had become the focal point of his scattered thoughts, transformed by circumstance into someone else entirely, an embodiment of professionalism reverting under pressure. As she engaged in a brief, seemingly business-related conversation, Blake found himself grasping for control over his own spiraling emotions. Each word she exchanged felt like a chisel, carving deeper into the delineation of who he was versus who he wished to be. A man who could step into the realm of vulnerability without crumbling. His breathing slowed, yet the turmoil inside him felt alive, an unsettling pulse urging him to align his thoughts with actions. "Right," she concluded, ending the call abruptly. The conversation lingered momentarily, then dissipated like vapor in the air. Ava turned to him, her expression unreadable, but the slight crease of her brow hinted at underlying tension. "Sorry about that. Work never seems to stop." "I understand." The words felt inadequate. Here they were, at a critical juncture, and yet the specter of her obligations weighed heavily on their budding potential. "Blake, I appreciate you being here," she said, her voice vulnerable but tinged with uncertainty. "I really do. But I'm not the one who needs saving." Her statement hung between them, a challenge masked in gratitude. The revelation stirred something in him, seeds of defiance sprouting with the urge to challenge that assertion. "You may not want saving, but accepting help doesn't signify weakness, Ava. It's as much about finding balance as it is admitting you're human." Ava regarded him steadily, measuring his resolve. The fire behind her gaze spoke of battles hard fought, yet she remained a fortress, her defenses bolstered by the belief that resilience stemmed from solitude. The truth gnawed at Blake, an illumination of his own shortcomings. He had built walls around himself too, barricades forged by fear of rejection and self-doubt. "Why do you care so much?" she asked, her voice softer but edged with suspicion. "We hardly know each other outside of work." It felt like a damning question that pressed into the depths of his psyche. Why did he care? It shouldn't have mattered, yet it consumed his thoughts. "Because I see you, Ava," he declared, the words tumbling out of him like waves crashing over a shore. "You're not just an employee to me, and it's more than professional respect. I admire your grit. I admire you." With each phrase, he peeled back layers of himself, exposing the raw vulnerability he had usually cloaked beneath bravado. The silence stretched between them, charged with an energy that demanded acknowledgement. If he allowed himself to be vulnerable, could she do the same? "Blake." She sighed, clearly grappling with the implications of his admission. "This is complicated." "Then let's make it uncomplicated," he urged, desperation creeping into his tone. "Tell me what you need, Ava. Tell me how we can navigate through this, together." A faint flicker of hope sparked in her expression, but it was quickly stifled by another curtain of uncertainty. The resolve to face this hardship was there, but would it be too much too soon? Could they face the intricate dance where professional lines blurred into something more profound? The moments passed without resolution, and as the silence deepened, it became clear that they were on the cusp of something pivotal. Would they take the plunge into this uncharted territory together, revealing not only their vulnerabilities but also their strengths? Suddenly, a loud knock on the door broke through the moment, shaking both of them from their dilemma. With curiosity and trepidation, they turned to see who awaited beyond that threshold. Would this intruder serve as a catalyst for clarity, Or would it push them further away from the connection burgeoning between them? Ava's heart raced as they exchanged glances, both of them still caught in the web of emotions that had just woven between them. The knock on the door was insistent, almost threatening in its urgency. Blake moved first, striding toward the entrance with purpose. Her instinct was to step back, unsure of the consequence of whoever stood on the other side. "Wait," she called, reaching out as though to tether him back to the moment they had just shared. "What if it's something complicated?" Blake paused, his hand hovering over the doorknob. The tension and vulnerability of the instant moments before rang in his ears. He turned to her, his brow furrowed with caveats, but the knot in his stomach was urging him forward. "I need to know what's happening," he confessed, the words spilling out with an intensity that startled them both. Before she could respond, he twisted the knob, pulling the door open wide. A figure edged into the frame. "Mr. Blake, we need to talk. It's urgent." The voice belonged to a man in a sharp suit, his expression devoid of the warmth Blake had momentarily experienced with Ava. The man sidestepped inside, filling the space with authority and unyielding focus. "How did you find me here?" Blake snapped, not bothering to mask the annoyance in his voice. He had stepped away for a reason. "Your assistant couldn't reach you. She assumed you'd be at home, preparing for the meeting. I had to come look for you. This is about the deal with Johnson Enterprises." A chill washed over Ava. The very mention of that company sent rippling echoes of late nights and high stakes tearing through her mind. She felt the remnants of their conversation start to dissolve under the weight of reality. The space between her and Blake felt expansive, unbridgeable. Blake grimaced at the reminder of work. "I told you I would handle the proposal later," he replied, wrestling against the instinct to retreat emotionally as practicalities flooded in. "It's critical you address this now." "They're not going to wait," the man continued, gathering momentum with every word. "There's a conflict regarding a key partner. You need to act quickly." Blake's jaw clenched. His eyes flickered to Ava, searching for a measure of solidarity, but her countenance was clouded with worry, and he realized then how much their earlier connection had hinged on intimacy rather than interruptions. He needed to take control back. "Can you give us 15 minutes? His voice was a mix of determination and desperation, a plea that he struggled to convey as he wrestled with his obligations. "This is important." The man narrowed his eyes but nodded after a brief hesitation. "Fine. I'll be outside." As the door closed behind him, the weight of the decision crashed over Blake. He was caught between two worlds: the pressing demands of his profession and the emerging, vulnerable relationship with Ava. "What just happened?" Ava asked, crossing her arms, a defensive posture that mirrored her fragile emotions. "We need to talk about this," he said, moving closer again. "About what I said. About us." "Us?" She shook her head, disbelief washing over her features. "You've got so much going on, Blake. Are you sure you're ready for that? That what we share can even last? You have everything at stake, and I can't keep being part of it." Her fear pierced through him, igniting a resolve he hadn't expected. "You're not a liability. You're a part of my life that I want to embrace," he asserted, each word more deliberate. "But it means you have to be open with me too. We can't keep building walls." Ava hesitated. The turbulent undercurrents within her swirled. "I'm scared," she admitted finally, her voice hushed but heavy. Fear coursed through the atmosphere. "What if I drag you into my chaos?" "Then we'll navigate it together," he vowed, stepping closer, their connection teetering on the precipice of something extraordinary, yet fraught with potential danger. "But it starts now. We have to take the risk." As she looked up at him, the briefest flicker of resolve crossed her features, yet shadows of doubt loomed. Could she truly bridge that gap between fear and connection? Then, The abrupt ringing of Blake's phone jolted them back to reality. Tension mounted as he glanced at the caller ID, a reminder that other obligations waited hungrily for his attention. "Who is it?" she asked, sensing the shift. "Someone who might change everything," he grumbled, the resolve in his expression crackling with uncertainty. "But I can't ignore it either." He started to step back, torn between the magnetic pull of their connection and the urgent call of duty. Ava's heart thudded in hesitation. She could sense the crossroads before them, laden with choices that could redefine not just their relationship, but their individual paths as well. "Blake," she began, but he gestured to stay quiet, finally taking the call. As he answered with a tight-lipped composure, Ava could only stare into the void between them, wondering how much longer they'd continue to dance around their fears and uncertainties. The clang of the stakes being raised reverberated through her mind. Would their breakthrough come at a price both were willing to pay? The questions loomed heavily, each heartbeat echoing the tension in the air. Could they rise above their fears, or would the clutter of obligations and expectations shatter whatever bond had formed in that moment of shared vulnerability? Ava felt the weight of the room closing in as Blake's voice transformed into a quiet murmur. She could only catch snippets of his conversation, words tinged with urgency that seemed to pull him further away, further into a world she felt she could neither navigate nor penetrate. Uncertainty gnawed at her insides, fragments of insecurities racing through her mind. How could she, a woman juggling her own ambitions and fears, possibly hold space for him in the chaos of business? Time stretched tautly, seconds expanding into agonizing minutes before Blake finally hung up. He ran a hand through his hair, his lips pressed tightly together as if trying to seal away the frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. She could see the war within him, the battle between professional obligations and personal connection. "Ava," he began, his tone softer now, laced with a hint of vulnerability that set her on edge. "I don't want this to complicate things further between us, but I need you to understand that this deal is everything. It defines my career." Her breath hitched at the weight of his words, which felt like both a warning and a plea. "And what about us?" She swallowed hard, confronting the unvoiced fears that shadowed their exchange. "You can't keep saying you want to include me in your life and then shut me out when responsibilities come calling." He stepped closer, their previous connection momentarily ignited once again. "You think I'm trying to shut you out? I can't afford to lose sight of who I want to be professionally either. That's important too," he countered, a spark of frustration woven into his voice. The tension was palpable, crackling with the potential to ignite further confrontations. I want to know where I fit in this picture you're painting." Each word felt like a revelation, an admission of her vulnerability. "Does this even fit? With you racing back to meetings and I'm left here just waiting?" Blake's gaze softened, remorse clouding the lines of his expression as he processed her words. The gap between them felt more than physical now. It was emotional and existential, filled with unanswered questions about their futures and the paths they were carving for themselves. "I see you," he finally said, a deep breath pulling his shoulders back. "And I know that I can't compartmentalize what we have. It needs to be part of the choices I make moving forward." Relief washed over her, mingling with doubt. "And what if those choices pull you away? What if I can't keep up with whatever comes next?" She dreaded the answer, the possible tides of change that could sweep him away from her, much like they had done before. "I'm not going to let that happen," he asserted, the sincerity in his voice reflecting an earnestness that made her heart flutter. "You and I have something genuine. We have to trust that." But that trust was still a fragile thread, fraying at the edges by the very circumstances that surrounded them. Silence settled between them, the air thick with unvoiced fears. Ava glanced past him, contemplating the world beyond the walls that felt suddenly so confining. Could they really make this work? The idea of entangling her life with someone whose journey was so steeped in uncertainty churned her stomach. Then, shaking her head slightly, she murmured, "You must go to that meeting, don't you?" She offered a small, pained smile, one that struck her as bittersweet. She didn't want him to go, yet she understood the urgency of his responsibilities. He opened his mouth to argue but stopped, lowering his head with a sigh. "Yes, I need to deal with this," he conceded, stepping back. "But I want us to talk more about this, about where we stand. I just need some time." "Fine." The word tasted almost like defeat on her tongue as she pushed it out. "But let's not let time become an excuse. I need to know we're both choosing this because we want to, not just because the option exists." As he nodded, she felt the tremors of apprehension ripple through her again, reminding her that choices came with unexpected consequences. The connection they shared felt alive yet precarious, teetering on the edge of something monumental. Just before Blake turned to leave, he faced her with a lingering gaze that promised discussions yet to come. "I won't let you down," he stated, certainty radiating from him. But would that certainty hold when the chaos of reality surged back into their lives? As the door clicked shut behind him, doubt clouded her mind once again. Ava's heart began to race, questions stretching ahead like an uncharted expanse. Would they emerge from this storm together? Or would the tempest of their lives rip them apart? A shard of dread pierced through, whispering from the corners of her consciousness. What could come next to test their resolve? Ava paced across the small living room, her thoughts swirling like autumn leaves caught in a fierce wind. The silence left in the wake of Blake's departure felt suffocating, pressing against her chest, and making each breath a labor. She had always prided herself on being driven, having forged her career with determination. But now, that same zeal became a confusing mix of ambition and anxiety. She was no longer just juggling her dreams. She was struggling to balance the weight of uncertainty their relationship now carried. She hadn't signed up for half measures. The prospect of a couple of missed moments felt trivial when compared to the magnitude of the life choices they were both facing. Ava glanced at the clock. Each tick felt like a countdown, each moment a reminder of the silence expanding between them. Would they bridge the gap? Or would it widen until there was no turning back? Sinking onto the sofa, she grabbed her laptop and stared blankly at the screen. Work seemed like the safest escape route. A proposal for a new project lay half-finished, yet the words failed to flow. It felt insignificant compared to what haunted her heart. The flicker of uncertainty about her and Blake had her mind racing down paths she never wanted to explore. Taking a deep breath, she instinctively opened a new document. This was her space. No impending meetings, no expectations. Just her and her thoughts. She began typing furiously, penning down all her swirling ideas while intertwining them with her current emotional turmoil. Somehow, pouring her feelings into words started to stitch those frayed edges of her confidence back together. Amid her fingers, the words morphed into a personal manifesto, laden with insights about her career ambitions and her relationship with Blake. She reflected on her dreams, the vastness of her aspirations colliding with the strange gravitational pull of her emotions. What if their pursuit of success put distance between them instead of drawing them closer? The thought stung. What was it she truly wanted? Ava knew she faced a choice, between her heart and her dreams. But surrendering to vulnerability felt terrifying. Would she lose her grasp on the reins of her life if she embraced this bond with Blake? Could he understand her ambition without it jeopardizing his own? Suddenly, a notification pinged, jolting her from her internal battle. It was a message from her trusted colleague, Marcus. "Ava, are you free to discuss that proposal? I've got some great ideas." She felt a surge of urgency. Yes, she had a duty to herself. This call could be a solid distraction, but it also held the potential for clarity. If she focused on her professional life, Maybe personal uncertainties would ease, if only temporarily. "Let's meet at the coffee shop in 10, Ava replied, her heart quickening with newfound resolve. There was power to be found in professional success, and she couldn't lose sight of her own path while navigating someone else's storm. As she gathered her things and prepared to step outside, a thought lingered. What would she say to Blake when the moment came to confront their crossroads? The prospect of an honest conversation both excited and terrified her. It would demand vulnerability, but also courage. As she closed the door behind her, Ava felt a mixture of determination and dread building within her. How could she confront both her dreams and the complexities of her heart? The air outside felt cooler, invigorating. A reminder that fresh starts were born from bold choices. She couldn't shake the fear that loomed ahead. What would that conversation mean for her and Blake? The crumbling facade of her certainty made way for a singular truth. Before she could be with him, she needed to fully understand herself. But just as she stepped into that knowledge, the moment of reckoning arrived in the form of a figure crossing her path, Blake. Destiny had a way of pushing unexpected encounters right to the edge, didn't it? The grasp of their unresolved issues loomed larger as they stood on the brink of something they both couldn't ignore. How would they navigate this intersection of personal ambition and affection? The weight of that question hung heavily in the air as she watched him approach, leaving Ava questioning whether this moment would solidify their bond or drive them apart once and for all. Ava's heart stalled as Blake's familiar figure drew closer, an intricate web of emotions threading through her mind. Was this serendipity or fate orchestrating a confrontation she wasn't ready for? She felt a whirlwind of thoughts clamoring for attention, yet words eluded her, leaving her momentarily frozen in place. Blake's eyes held a mixture of regret and hope, silently questioning whether they could reconcile the swirling chaos that had marred their relationship. This meeting, however accidental, demanded clarity. The air was thick with unsaid words, a tension that begged them to choose: move forward together or remain anchored in uncertainty. "Hey," Blake offered tentatively, hands shoved deep into the pockets of his coat, his voice barely above a whisper. "Hi," Ava replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She felt the shift in their dynamic. It was as if they stood at the precipice of a cliff, one foot lingering in the past, the other hesitantly stepping toward an uncertain future. "Are you okay?" His concern was palpable, and it stirred something within her, a mix of anger and affection, as if both extremes could coexist within her. "Honestly, I don't know," she said, her voice steady, but her heart unraveled. "We need to talk about everything, Blake." Nodding, he motioned towards a nearby bench, and as they sat, Ava faced the enormity of what loomed ahead. For too long, her career and her personal life had intertwined seamlessly, yet now it felt as if they were impossible to reconcile. A professional fire had propelled her, but the relationship with Blake introduced a vulnerability that she often found enticing yet terrifying. "I'm sorry for leaving," Blake began, his gaze dropping to the ground as if he feared the weight of her eyes. "I thought space would help us, but it made me realize I miss you. We need to be honest, Ava. No more running." She studied him, noting the way he clenched his fists, a telltale sign of his own internal struggle. Did he grasp the magnitude of the crossroads they faced? "I don't want to keep pretending that our choices don't affect each other. I love my work, Blake. But if I'm with you, how does that change things? What do we give up?" His brow creased as he contemplated her words. "I've been thinking the same, Ava. I value my career too, but I also know what it feels like to lose you, and I don't want that. Can't we find a balance?" Hope flickered in her chest, but doubt began to creep in. Finding balance meant compromise, and Ava was exhausted from straddling two worlds. "You realize it might not be just about us, right? My ambitions don't come with a pause button," Blake's eyes met hers again, fear and determination intertwined. I get that. But isn't love worth the risk? Isn't our partnership valuable enough to navigate this together? His words hung in the air, an invitation wrapped in uncertainty. Could she allow herself to open that door? The vulnerability struck her like a lightning bolt, illuminating truths she had avoided. Would she jeopardize her journey to accommodate a relationship? Or was there a path where both could flourish? Inwardly, she battled with her decision. Could she truly redefine her ambitions without sabotaging their connection? Just as her thoughts began to take shape, a realization struck her. The choice to leverage her career might open the very door she feared to tread. Ava, are you still with me? Blake's voice cut through the haze, and she blinked, suddenly grounded in the moment. Yes, I think so, she confessed, her heart racing with another surge of determination. But I need to be honest about my dreams first. I've been burying them to nurture this. Can we start with that? A palpable silence enveloped them, as both stared into the uncertain distance, aware that shedding barriers was the first step toward healing and growth. Would they risk it all to transform a fractured bond into something formidable? As the sun began to set, casting warm hues across the sky, Ava contemplated the blend of fear and opportunity that lay before them. Yet the possibility of faltering with every step felt heavier than before. Before they could delve deeper, a text pinged on Blake's phone, interrupting the weight of the moment. I should take this, he said, glancing down. Ava felt a sinking sensation. What if this pull toward honesty fractured their delicate conversation? As he stepped away to answer the call, a shadow of anxiety flickered within her. Would their conversation generate a sense of clarity, or would it fracture into yet another unresolved tension? Time felt heavy as she awaited his return, heart pounding, wondering if they were truly ready to confront the uncertainties tethered to both their ambitions. Ava sat on the bench, her fingers nervously tracing the wood grain as anxiety twisted in her stomach. The vibrant colors of the sunset faded slowly, a metaphor for the fleeting clarity she felt moments before. She focused her gaze on Blake in the distance, his profile illuminated by the dusky glow as he answered his phone. What was so important that it tore him away right when she needed him most? A swell of frustration surged within her. She had summoned the courage to address the turbulence in their relationship, yet she now felt like a ghost, caught in a moment of time, a glimpse of possibility tainted by uncertainty. Her ambitions had always been intertwined with a sense of purpose. They fueled her. Yet for months, she had cast aside her dreams, prioritizing a relationship that now felt precarious. Could she liberate herself from the self-imposed cage? The soothing tones of Blake's voice faded in and out as he spoke, her mind racing toward her aspirations. The art exhibit she'd been planning for so long, and the career trajectory she desperately wanted to solidify. When Blake returned, she needed to be ready. The moment hung in the air between them, electrifying and daunting. He returned, his expression tinged with guilt. I'm sorry, he said, dragging a hand through his hair. That was my brother. Family stuff. It can't wait. What about us, Blake? Can we afford to keep putting our conversation on hold? The words spilled out before she could filter them, revealing the flood of emotion she had kept bottled inside. I know. This isn't easy for either of us, he said, his tone earnest. I don't want to lose you. I want to make this work, but I understand if you need space to figure out your dreams. His willingness to let her go was both protecting and infuriating. Did he really grasp the stakes? It wasn't just about preserving their bond. It was also about reclaiming her identity, the one she had neglected beneath the weight of love. Ava shifted, inhaling deeply. I need to pursue my art, Blake. I want to push boundaries, to challenge myself creatively. But I also... She hesitated, searching his face for understanding. I can't see a future where I'm the one who sacrifices. Blake leaned closer, the desperation in his eyes unmistakable. I don't want to hold you back. I want to support you, even if it means struggling to find our way through this together. Each word was carefully weighted, as if he were laying a foundation for a future that felt uncertain at best. Ava considered the prospect of vulnerability. Could she take that leap of faith without losing herself? Their circumstances were complicated by external pressures, his family obligations, her career demands, and the looming deadline of her exhibit. However, she now recognized that her ambitions could fuel, rather than extinguish, their relationship. Maybe there was a way to intertwine their journeys instead of abandoning one for the other. If we're going to navigate this, I need to work on my exhibit without distractions. I'm afraid of what could happen if we divert our focus, she admitted, each word a tentative step forward into uncharted territory. Blake nodded, his expression softening, yet she could see the glimmer of fear behind his resolve. I care about you, Ava. Let's take this one day at a time. We can support each other, can't we? It was a precarious balance, but perhaps there lay a chance for growth, for both of them. She inhaled the cool air, feeling the familiar determination surge within. Yes, but it's going to take effort from both of us. I refuse to compromise my goals. However, I want you in my life, she clarified, each word powering her voice. A shared silence enveloped them, their hearts pulsing with untapped potential. Could they really forge a new path together? One driven by ambition as well as shared commitment. As they contemplated their choices in that peaceful park, dread coiled within her. The shadows of doubt lurked, waiting to snare her when the vulnerability of honesty invited risk. Before she could delve deeper into the possibilities, another text pinged on Blake's phone, shattering their moment. Yet this time, it was different. A frown crossed his features as he read the message. Ava's heart dropped. His solemn expression morphed the air around them. What news could shift the delicate balance they were trying to maintain? What is it? She asked, anxiety twisting in her gut. Something's happened at work. I need to handle this. What confrontation awaited him would set off a chain reaction that neither of them could foresee. Would this unexpected turn create a rift, or challenge them to fight for the fragile bond they coveted? Ava watched as Blake's face transformed, the weight of his responsibilities reshaping his features into a mask of urgency. The delicate bubble they had been attempting to create felt punctured, leaving only the chilling air of uncertainty. When he stood to leave, the movement felt swift and cumbersome, amplifying Ava's intensity of emotion, her fear surging forth. "Wait!" she called, desperation spilling over as she stood up as well. "We can't just leave it like this." Blake turned, his brow furrowed. "Ava, I can't ignore this. If I don't handle it now, it could get worse." The world around her blurred, a cacophony of fading sunlight and muffled voices. It was as if they were at the center of a storm, temporary calm shattered by storm clouds ready to break. "But what about us? We need—" "I know, but there's a crisis." His voice faltered, then softened grudgingly. "When I'm finished, where will we go from here?" The challenge lingered heavily, raising stakes she had almost forgotten in the heat of the moment. She had envisioned their support for one another solidifying their bond. Instead, doubt seeped in like ink into water. What if they were both prioritizing their paths to the detriment of their relationship? "Let me know what happens," she said quietly. The knot in her stomach twisted tighter, a painful reminder of what she was letting go, the connection they had built over countless shared moments, laughter, and dreams. Ava watched as he turned to leave, the tension and frustration boiling beneath the surface. Once he disappeared around the corner, she sank back onto the bench, staring at the remnants of twilight. 1,000 thoughts surged through her mind, battling for attention. Guilt choked her. She was torn between wanting to nurture their relationship and her gnawing ambition. But what felt more entrapment? Staying in a relationship that flourished only when mutually convenient, or prioritizing her dreams and potentially losing him for good? The fear of making the wrong choice tightened its grip around her. Ava reached for her phone, typing out chords from her inner tumult, the reckless abandon she'd used to channel from her thoughts onto the canvas. The words flowed effortlessly, each stroke a confrontation with herself, mapping out the fears and aspirations that had come to define her. As she pieced the narrative together, an unexpected revelation struck her. The exhibit that loomed closer was not just a culmination of her work. It was an opportunity to reclaim not just her passion, but her independence too. She paused, a sudden clarity blossoming. What if she infused elements of her personal conflict into the exhibit? Each piece could channel hope and loss, love and ambition, all stark realities she now faced. It felt exhilarating, a catalyst for both personal growth and artistic expression. With this vision solidified, Ava's heart quickened with renewed determination. She stood up from the bench, feeling lighter, energized. She would not allow fear to dictate her ambition. The path before her now split into two. One led to the simplicity of comfort, while the other surged toward uncertainty, but blazing opportunity. Grabbing her bag, she turned toward the path leading back to her studio, an oasis of creativity that had beckoned her before. Each step echoed with the undulating rhythm of her resolve. As she neared her sanctuary, her phone buzzed again, cutting through the newfound clarity. Was it Blake's number? The anticipation threatened to pull her back. Yet part of her felt the pull toward exploration rather than retreat. If she answered, would she become mired in the complexities of his new crisis, or could she maintain her sense of emerging purpose? Her hand hovered over the screen, heart racing. A decision loomed before her, echoing the question of whether she would respond to the past or bravely chart her own course forward. In that moment, the weight of her choices felt dizzying. Would she answer and risk losing herself, or would she take this defining moment to embrace her independence and artistry, moving forward without looking back? As the phone continued to buzz incessantly, a revelation forged ahead. She had never been one to shy away from conflict. The time had come to face the chaos head-on, and to discover what lay on the other side of ambition. Ava stood resolute, her heart charging forward as the day unfolded before her. The tension of her earlier conversation with Blake faded into strength, urging her to reclaim her identity and ambition. This morning marked a fresh start, a period of self-discovery that allowed her artistry to breathe life into her dreams. She felt the urgency pricking at her conscience. The exhibition was not merely an event. It was the manifestation of everything she wanted to communicate about her journey. After casting a glance at her phone, she turned away from the pull of Blake's impending crisis. Instead, she stepped into her studio, the walls lined with canvases that held unsung stories and fractured emotions. Here, in this sacred space, Ava could commit to salvaging her ambitions without compromise. She refused to let fear dictate her decisions any longer. The rush of inspiration flooded her senses as she navigated through stacks of paint tubes and brushes. With each stroke she created on the canvas, she infused her emotions into the vibrant colors, challenging herself to confront truths she had once tried to ignore. The exhibit now took shape in her mind, a representation of resilience amid chaos, reflecting her internal battle, turning dreams into tangible realities. The sun's rays poured through the windows, igniting the creative energy in the room. Hours melded into one as she painted, weaving fragments of her relationship with Blake, threading competition, vulnerability, and love into her artwork. She realized that sharing space with another person didn't mean sacrificing her path. It meant forging a new one that allowed both of their dreams to coexist. As she stepped back to admire her work, a sense of accomplishment wrapped around her like a warm embrace. This was her voice, an expression that proclaimed she would not only survive, but thrive. Her ambitions no longer felt like a burden, but rather the very foundation that could uphold a partnership, should Blake choose to navigate that space with her. But that spark took a back seat when her phone buzzed again, vibrating against the table. Part of her wanted to ignore it, to dive back into her world of vibrant hues. Instead, she picked it up, glancing at the screen. It was a message from Blake. "I'm free. Can we talk? I need to share something important." Her pulse quickened. The uncertainty of what they would discuss gripped her. Yet she recognized this as an opportunity, a crossroads where both their paths could either intertwine or diverge once and for all. Fighting the unease, she crafted her response. "Yes, let's meet. I have important things to share too." A wave of satisfaction washed over her. The opportunity for clarity lay ahead. No longer would she shy away. Ava was ready to address both her aspirations and their relationship head-on. When they met at a local cafe, the air hummed with tension, but a new energy pulsed within her. As Blake arrived, she noted the determination etched on his face, prepared yet apprehensive. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, silence stretched between them, echoing the weight of unresolved emotions. "I'm glad we could come together," he began, his demeanor shifting from anxious to focused. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about what we need." Ava took a deep breath, sensing this was a pivotal moment. "Before we go on, I want to tell you something. I'm working on a project that I believe captures everything I feel. It's my way of embracing my ambition without apology." Surprise flickered across Blake's features, but admiration quickly replaced it. "That's great, Ava. I want you to follow those dreams." He leaned in, drawing comfort from her words. "There were things I wanted to share too. The pressure at work has been intense, but I'm committed to managing it better. I don't want you to feel as if you're a distraction. I want to support your goals as much as I hope you'll support mine. I'm learning to balance both." Ava felt warmth swell inside her. They stood on the cusp of transformation, equipped with stronger foundations. "We need to be honest with each other about our needs as individuals and as a pair. We both have ambitions that scare us, but they also drive us. Let's use that to fuel what we're building here." They exchanged smiles, relief flooding the air as unspoken tension dissipated, drawing them closer. Yes, this mattered. They would no longer live in separate worlds overshadowed by fear. They were ready to intertwine their lives, but not at the cost of their ambitions. The conversation continued to unfold, an unearthing of aspirations paired with a commitment to each other. They spoke about dreams, fears, and the beauty of forging ahead without relinquishing their individual paths. As they navigated through blossoming plans, Ava felt the shadows of doubt diminish against the bright backdrop of possibility. They were weaving a tapestry of shared commitment, one that could withstand the chaos that life often thrust upon them. Hours passed, and eventually, as the sun began to set, they shared their final thoughts, both lighter and more grounded than before. It was an offering of newfound hope, a chance to embark on this journey together. Ava smiled as they rose to leave. "You know, this is just the beginning for us, right?" "Yes," Blake replied, pulling her closer. "It's the start of something amazing." In that moment, under the fading light, they felt an undeniable sense of unity, fortified by the understanding that love and ambition could exist side by side. They left the cafe hand in hand, ready to conquer the unknown and embrace whatever lay ahead on their shared path, with full hearts and renewed resolve. They would achieve together, conquer worries together, and ultimately inspire each other to reach heights they had never known possible. Not just in love, but as individuals. This was their time, and she would make it count. The journey ahead beckoned with possibility and purpose. Now this is your time to take action. Don't let this moment pass you by. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this impactful conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now, and this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.